Beardy and the Beast Media Club.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is a placeholder intro song.
Thank you for joining us for the Beardy and Beast Media Club, a podcast where we discuss a film in detail with no concern for spoilers. We will consume those spoilers like a corrupt priest consumes that sweet, sweet sacramental wine. We're available on this and other platforms and services, a full list available at beardyandthebeast.com. You know what to do, thumbs up, subscribe, but if you enjoy our content, you should give us a share. I'm Drew, and always I'm joined by the sin of mischief in our hearts, Devin.
What's up?
Today we'll be discussing the 2017 black comedy The Little Hours. This is an adaptation spoof of the first tale of the third day from Giovanni Boccaccio's Decameron. So, what sins have you come to confess about the film, my son?
I watched that movie and it's 3 hours I'm never getting back.
I take it you did not enjoy that movie.
The movie's an hour and a half. It took twice that. Like, not actually watching it, just it felt like that.
Ah, that's
So,
that's definitely I would say that's a bad sign because when the length of a film feels extended like that and it's not intended, that would definitely be a negative.
yeah,
However, for me, I would say this film felt more like 45 minutes.
really.
I absolutely adored this film.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is okay. This is amazing. This is not how I expected this to go today. Not gonna lie.
Just something about the way that it would go between the almost even accurate costumes and sets and sereneness and sound, birds chirping, to the uh, like stone face, sarcastic or even abusive humor that's more contemporary at a drop of a hat, just would really get me. Just like a punch, like a punch and a jab of little humor things.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, I can see it's like I mean, this movie has an amazing comedic cast. I mean, Molly Shannon, John C. Riley, Allison Brie, uh, Aubrey Plaza, and Kate McCucci. Like they are funny people. Like I love um, Garfunkel Notes, which Kate McCucci is part of. I mean, Community is probably one of my main go-to shows. While I haven't watched as much Parks and Rec, I've definitely seen the memes and find them hilarious with like Aubrey Plaza and John C. Riley is the reason why I can watch any Will Ferrell movie.
Yeah, I could see that.
Um, yeah. Um, and I mean Molly Shannon, of course, being an SNL alum, right? Right up there with Tina Fey, and so yeah, I did not find that. I feel like I can see what they were trying to go for, but for some reason I didn't see the chemistry between most of these characters. I didn't feel like Makuji Plaza and Bree played into each other well enough, at least at the beginning. I found Allison Brie and Aubrey Plaza played a bit better as the movie kind of went on, but it felt like I was just watching Aubrey Plaza, Allison Brie, Kate Micucci. Like they felt almost typecast instead of having any chemistry. Whereas Dave Franco and John C. Riley, the first time when they were first together doing their doing the confessions, that's literally the first chuckle that movie got out of me.
Really?
Yeah. I felt the anachronism of Aubrey Plaza's, as you said, that just that contemporary kind of
Mm.
insulting humor. It felt so out of place and so unwarranted. It just came across as abusive to me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, holy crap, you are a terrible person. And it gets worse when when they meet Franco's character.
Oh no, I have some theories for you later,
All right.
and I think it will draw your interest a little bit more into this movie. It may not flip you around. Um,
That's fair.
but if you ever did watch it again, you would be like, I understand what you're saying. I think part of the reason why you didn't see that chemistry till later in the movie is because this entire film was a 20-page outline.
Right.
From there, the rest of it is a whole lot of improvisation. They were
That,
given beats, and then the comedians were tasked with doing something with it.
yeah, I can see that. That's a very difficult thing to do.
Yes.
And if you don't have the right people there doing it together, it can fall really quickly. Um, and I look at Ghostbusters is a really good example of people who clicked doing that. The original Ghostbusters, from what I hear, because I haven't seen the 2016 one, I hear that's a good example of them not doing that. And that's almost what I felt like. I could see that bit of improv. Like, I mean, even with like the turn-ups, no, they're shit. Like it felt like it was improv, but it made characters like Kate Micucci's character, it made her feel like a tag along. Like she wasn't like, I mean, I know her more as a singer. Like I know she's been in plenty of things,
Mm.
but never as like a main cast member in the same way that that the rest of the cast has been. So it you could feel that she wasn't. It almost felt like she wasn't prepared
Okay.
for the improv. And I mean, I'm honestly not surprised for you to say that it was a 20-page excerpt or outline essentially, because I honestly feel like the movie should have started at the end. That's when I finally felt it's like, okay, now we're getting some characters, now we're getting some movement. I honestly have no idea where the plot was, and it just threw me off. Even like talking the visuals and the archaic feel that it was going for. They had the text, that really reminded me of things like, old Robin Hood movies, and I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
The music going through that just took me out because I couldn't tell what it was supposed to be, and, I mean, it's been a long time, but I used to do like, I did do music for a long while, and it just didn't it felt like something trying to be what it thinks that period's music would sound like without actually knowing what it was, and even that took me out
Mm.
almost immediately at the beginning of the film. Yeah.
If we were to skip back, if we were to look at the characters themselves, I would say Alessandra or Bree's character being your likely the primary protagonist. I
Yeah.
think Mikuchi's character Generva was intentionally the tag along and the tattletale. Like I thought that was intentionally part of her character,
Yeah.
like a little sister character.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
then
definitely see that.
as far as Plaza's character, my eternal celebrity crush, Robert Plaza. Um,
It's the disinterest.
it's fully the disinterest. Sister Fernanda, the rude, defiant. I couldn't figure out if she was more of a anti-hero or an antagonist archetype
Yeah.
within the film.
Yeah.
And I think as an overall story, the changes of the characters themselves are the actual antagonists, but we'll get into that. I did like Franco's and Riley's characters and the way that they interacted together.
Yeah.
However, I mean, Franco's character, there wasn't anything to him. He was more of a possession or a thing
Oh, yes.
than 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 actually a plot vehicle or a character himself.
Well, this is almost why I'm saying, like, it didn't feel like the movie began until literally the end of the film.
Mm.
Because at the end of the film, it's like, okay, you had you had the three nuns and them coming to rescue Franco's character. I'm like, okay, cool. Now I've got a little bit of a thing. We kind of have, the party, as it were. And all right, now let's go see what mischief they do.
Mm.
That should have been like 10 minutes in. I don't know. I felt it dragged, and it don't.
It's probably because it's a long form adaptation. The structure and evolution of the film itself is probably what's working against it in your eyes. Starting as like a single short story from a book and migrating to a 20-page outline, which then expected the cast to fill in the contents to flesh it out.
Yeah.
And I imagine the difference between what you and I saw via our different lenses
Yeah.
is I looking at this movie, I felt that they filled it well, that their parts were whole and actual for what they could have been with it. Like there's nothing more that they could have done without it actually being a fully written, reevaluated, rewritten, like an actual film process. But I definitely understand where you're coming from. Like having the contemporary mannerisms and language working
Yeah.
against it and taking you out of like the period.
Well, like, so I think that's only part of it. Like,
Mm.
it's not the contemporary mannerisms isn't what threw me off. I mean, again, if that was the case, why would I watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail or half the Mel or most of the Mel Brooks films that are out there, right? It's not that. It's the things to me didn't feel like they connected. It didn't feel like, again, like there was a story. Their interactions didn't flush out the world. It was filler. It
Uh,
was like Plaza's character was just a bitch. She just didn't like that guy, so drive him out, drive the friar out essentially, right? I mean,
so
sure that kind of comes in at the end, but it didn't feel like it didn't feel to me like it was built up like a foreshadowing to her being in a coven. It just felt like, nah, you're just kind of a word that I'm not going to say, but really want to.
I mean, you could say that she is that word, but then you could also say that she could be the representation of wrath.
Okay, I
So
can see that.
yeah, I originally thought that the characters themselves were a personification of one of the deadly sins.
Okay,
But when trying to chart it out, it didn't make sense. Of course, you had like Father Tommaso John C. Riley could easily be both gluttony and greed. You could have Fernando Aubrey Plaza being both wrath and sloth. Like they definitely had multiple traits. This kind of harkens to these types of films and series like Always Sunny, where all the characters are just bad people. And what I experienced in this film is the progression of each of the characters through the sins, specifically Alessandra. If you were to focus on this entire movie as being about her, she would learn her original introduction when talking to her father was filled with envy.
okay,
She was envious of those with a partner. All she wanted was marriage. These type of traits, and
right.
then she goes through this series of loss, and that's something I found interesting. I might mention that later. From there, she didn't become abusive like the other girls until she had lost everything. Then she started going through this progression, which ended up through wrath, gluttony, lust, pride, etc. But it wasn't. She definitely showcased her wrath when they were all abusing the groundskeeper.
Yeah,
I think Makuchi's character was only acting out at that time because she was around the other girls
yeah, I agree
with
with that.
that tag along little sister character. So this is the kind of perception that I'm going with right now, that it didn't really have the trouble with the movie is the lack of the antagonist, as I kind of mentioned earlier. They're not fighting against anything. They're just bad people existing until there's an apex and then there's some type of resolution.
Yeah, lack of antagonist kind of, I mean,
Because they're
kind
not
of
working
works.
against anything, right? They're they don't have a mission, they don't have a quest. they're not trying to accomplish something.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they kinda are, but very surface stuff. And this is why I think the entire movie was to showcase these these girls going through a series of the sins.
I I'm struggling to see it.
Mm.
I not necessarily disagree. So I honestly feel almost like the lack of conflict, I guess, is part of it. I mean, it's one of the big things with comedy is the timing and the setups and the payoffs. And so again, I think of um, the John C. Riley and Dave Franco when they're doing that first confessional. That to me, that was hilarious. I loved that conversation because there was the setup and the payoff, right? The setup of him being chased out because committing adultery, right? And then he just goes into it. It goes into the adultery, and I'm like, in the specifics of it, I'm like, yeah, no, this is funny. There was the payoff there, right? And John C. Riley is essentially the straight man in that, and that was just amazing. I didn't see any of that with the others, so the jokes almost fell flat, right? It didn't. There was no setup with the way with why the girls are treating the friar that way for saying hi or good morning. So it didn't come across to me as something I could laugh at. It came across to me as like, wow, I want nothing to do with you guys. And whereas, like you said, Always Sunny, it's like, yeah, they're terrible people, but there's a setup for that terribleness that makes it funny. Everything came across as a non sequitur.
Mm.
I mean, yes, you can do that. As I said, Monty Python does it well, but I mean, again, there's still the setups, and it feels like a story is happening. And I'm not like I can see where you're saying it might be the lack of antagonist, for lack of better term, lack of conflict, I guess is what we'll say there instead. But you have to have something happening in a plot to move it forward. Right? It doesn't need to be the end of the world, like a big thing, right? Even if it was something like play a little bit on Ree's character seeing her father before they actually do it. They just
Mm.
said, "Yep, here's your father. Here's that little bit of a scene." There was nothing saying it's like, "How does she feel about her father coming?" Anything like that really built there. So I ended up not seeing things like you're saying, where you see them going through the sins and such. It's just, I guess, vignettes with
Mm.
like next to no connection is almost how it felt to me.
I
Not
know
gonna
that
lie, I checked the time like 4 times to see how much longer was left in the movie because of
that's
stuff like that.
yeah, the seat or phone check. The being pulled out of the movie either because of disinterest or a lack of connection to the film is
Yeah.
always a bad thing. And well, when that happens to me, I'm just like, no, I'm not enjoying this film. Like even if it is like could be, a world renowned movie, but if I'm checking the time, chances are I don't like the film.
Yeah.
Some of the things
And
I really did like using the donkey as like a constant plot vehicle and a joke, I found absolutely entertaining. I thought it was so funny. Like why the donkey's getting out. Well, the reason why the donkey was getting out is she was using it as cover to join her coven. And
yeah,
then from there is a character point where Bakuchi's rejected by Plaza. So she takes away the donkey. And
yeah,
then Plaza, of course, takes the donkey again so that they can go to the fertility ritual, and then it culminates at the end with
Molly Shannon.
yeah, Molly Shannon taking the donkey so she can go out and meet John C. Riley. So like that constant callback, and they definitely were going into some of your common comedy stuff like rules of three and that sort of thing. Like
Yeah,
they had three conversations about why the donkey was getting out. So they
yeah,
um
and yeah, I appreciated like things like that. Like,
I'm I'm wondering, it might also like our disagreement in this point might also come back to the way of delivery. So the movie is structured as such so that it resets the humor after every joke.
Yeah.
So it'll go to like a Spartan ground level, and then it'll do something humorous, either dry, witty, um, background, a callback, or alternatively like um, Blaz's character, something more abusive. It'll spike up and then it'll immediately drop again, resetting that humor, and that's something I actually liked about it. So it was that flat line where I would get a chuckle, and
Yeah.
then a guffaw, like an
Right.
actual like throat laugh.
Okay.
So that structure of humor I found very appealing,
Okay.
and I'm wondering, it sounds like that didn't work for you at all. Like the way that they delivered it in this film.
Yeah. There was a lot of that. It's mostly like it. The delivery was, I think, it could be because of those things. Again, it felt forced. So you never had the. It didn't feel like there was enough setup,
Mm,
right? I don't mind the quick stops a lot of time. Like, I mean, I get that. You do things like that sometimes and have that reset, but it feels like half the time it was that way on both sides.
mm,
It wasn't there was a setup around this until like a bit later in the film. It it got a little bit better.
I'm
Um,
thinking the way that you probably see this film is, this is a question, even though I'm making it
yeah,
sound like a statement. So there's a first half.
yeah,
Discard that first half in your head. You
yeah.
now have intro, story, climax, um, the drop down from the climax, whatever that's called, I forget right now, and then your ending.
Anticlimax.
Yeah, your anticlimax. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
So it sounds like the way you view this film is maybe even the last third, but it's definitely after the halfway point. That's
Mhm.
when it had a whole functional story for
Yeah,
it. Okay. And
yeah.
I
It felt like I mean there's the common trope in more so in horror films, but I mean comedy and horror have surprisingly a lot in common.
I could see that. That'd be an
Like,
interesting topic
and
for.
it yeah. Yeah, they're a lot in common when you actually look at the setups, payoffs, that type of thing. So a common trope in horror movies is 20 minutes with jerks, where you spend the first 20 minutes of the film seeing how bad these characters are, or so when the slasher comes at them, you don't necessarily get invested in a different way, right? Or
Mm.
around them, right? And this felt like there was too much of that. It was just like there's no inciting incident. Like I honestly thought it's like okay, the inciting incident was again the adultery thing, but I mean that essentially is dropped. You don't see anything like that until the very end of the film again, right? It's not like they were coming after him or anything. So you had that inciting incident. Then you had an inciting incident again with Bree's character basically being told by her dad is like, yeah, no, this is where you live now, and nothing kind of really sparked from that. Like, you didn't really have an inciting incident that moved the plot along until, Aubrey Plaza's character is was doing the first part of the fertility ritual, and
Oh, with the belladonna and all that.
with the belladonna and all that. Um, and then again, that's when all of a sudden the movie took off. I had lots of issues with how the nuns were with Franco's character. A
Just
lot of issues. I was very mouth agape through a lot of it, and I yeah, I've then again, it felt like something was happening and that
see,
the movie was moving somewhere.
it's interesting. It's interesting the how different we see this film, because for me that inciting incident of Bree's character losing everything that she had worked on and hoped for, and then her descent into like the sinful aspects of herself. I think if the movie was restructured, if that, let's be honest, 35-40 minutes of film was compressed to like 10, you'd
Yeah,
probably be more satisfied, because that entire structure there, from my point of view, is what
yeah,
that was.
yeah,
Essentially seeing, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed about her character as a whole, was seeing she's a sister in a convent,
mhm,
and instead of turning to God in her time of need, when she's effectively lost her family, her prospective suitor, all her work was destroyed slash lost, and therefore she has to do it again, which is more time. She has to do double the amount of work. So instead of turning to God in a convent, she turns to sinful acts. I just,
s- yeah, I kind of want to attack. I definitely don't see it the same way as you're
yeah, yeah.
describing it here, because what I'm seeing is, so she was always lustful. That's not a change. She was always not really doing work. I mean, she was the rich kid, and she acted like the rich kid to the point where, sure, there was the turn, as you say. It's like, oh yeah, well, I guess I'm stuck here now, so I'm gonna wash my own habit, and just hands it off to the others anyway. Like, oh no, that sounds like work. There was no change there. She was the same one. It was
But all the
so
embroidery
surface level.
all the embroidery work that was for sale was done by her. Like, she had different tasks. Like, Plaza was tasked with care of the donkey. Plaza and Mikuchi were tasked with the. She was tasked with the embroidery, which then was sold by the corrupt priest. But it's weird to have two completely different perspectives about a character. I find this super interesting. So then, what I'm wondering is, like, we've talked a lot about the sisters here. Like, what is, and obviously we actually have the same point of view on Franco's character.
Yeah.
In the film, he's just an object. Like, there's nothing more to him aside from like a couple jokes during the confession.
Yeah.
I think John C. Riley, Sean, uh,
Yes.
in this film did super well. Honestly, my favorite character is probably Offerman, the Lord Bruco, who kept yammering about the Guelphs.
Yeah. I,
Any scene that he was in, I was laughing. I was hysterical.
yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I found that fantastic. And I mean, I feel like he was absolutely hysterical. I did like his stuff, but you didn't get enough of him, and he was so divorced from the rest of the film,
Mm,
right? And we talk about Franco's character. Franco, again, they set up his character to have something happening. And I think that, like, obviously, I have no idea about the source material.
yeah, and
So
to
this is
honestly,
pure speculation.
this is probably us being that far from the source material,
Yeah,
in the fact that this entire movie could have probably been 45 minutes, half hour.
yeah,
Anyways, sorry,
yeah.
continue.
Um, so, like, I have no idea the source material, but what it felt like to me, I guess I'm gonna step back for a second. The trailer definitely made it seem like it was about the girl, and I think that's what the movie tried to do. But when you look at the story, the girls are not what the story was about, and never was. The story should have been about Franco's character. You have an exciting instant right off the bat where, like, if this was any other movie, and, like, I know I added this to the list, like Casanova.
Mm.
This movie made me think of Casanova and how it was done, a similar idea done well. So Franco's character is is under threat of being killed for sleeping with the Lord's wife as a commoner, right? He shows his intelligence when the Lord cuts this bit of hair, so he goes and does it to everyone else, so he can't tell who it is. They figure it out anyway. He runs, gets himself into a mess with the Covenant, and God was at a mess. And then to get captured by the Lord again, and then have them come free him. He's Everything about the plot should have been following him. There's a storyline there that's straight through line story.
I would definitely agree that the only person with any actual concrete storyline would be with Franco's character.
Yeah.
Though it's unfortunate that his character, and I imagine if he was the subject or the primary character of the film, would show some type of character change, but didn't.
Yeah.
Granted, I went into the film assuming that there wouldn't be any change in the characters. Most comedies, especially anything that's absurdist, there will
Yeah.
be almost no character development.
Yeah.
And because of the anachronism of this, it would follow suit. That is a very valid point. Like, if this was a different movie,
Yeah.
it likely would have followed him. I'm wondering, because the source material here, what was it? First Tale of the Third Day, from a collection of short stories. I'm wondering if there's additional tales that are missing, kind of one of those things that you'll see where they'll draw out a concept into something far too large with
Yeah.
not enough component.
Yeah.
But let's step aside for a moment.
All right.
Let's not talk about the characters and the story beats and that sort of thing. It sounds like we agree on most of it. We just have different concepts of what is good and bad about it.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about how lovely the environment and the scenes were. The shots that they did of the valley were so beautiful. The director, I think, you'll see a lot in comedy, a lot of it's just static.
Yeah.
Or like crazy shots. There's nothing super artful or anything. We have the shot, you go between the two characters, set up the joke,
Yeah.
pay off or punchline, or subvert expectations, etc. Like standard comedy.
Yeah.
So it's all scene based. Like, vast majority of comedy can be shot indoors.
Yeah. Look at sitcoms.
Yeah, 3 sets. That's all you need for a
Yeah.
sitcom.
Yeah.
The shots that showcase the environment, and I believe they actually shot this, I think, in the south of Spain. I'd have to look, but it was definitely done overseas. They were just so beautiful. Like,
There were, so it's a little hard for me to say. It looks like Italy. Tuscany is where. So I mean, there's definitely some scenes that pop out to me, like the shot of the bridge.
mm.
Um,
Which
like the
what I'm
bridge,
wondering, which shot though? Are you talking about the side profile or the straight on?
kind of the side profile is like a lower side profile
Okay,
of the
so you saw
bridge.
the hill behind it and the bridge as
Yeah.
if you were walking it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In the opening scene, like, again, the music took me out of it, but I mean, I could get a little bit of that imagery of like Sound of Music, where you're just seeing like the opening Sound of Music, where you have just the scenery.
Yeah,
Like
I
it
kind of
looked.
that series of shots. I felt the music didn't bother me at all because I'm not familiar with the time period of music. But that opening scene of the pilgrimage
Yeah.
of Plaza and the donkey just walking through the fields, and you see this sprawling landscape and like the greens and the mountains. I actually had a moment there. I was like, this is a beautiful area. That reminds me of some of the valleys in BC. So I just really enjoyed those shots. I felt like the
Yeah.
director was able to throw some art in that
Yeah, I agree with that.
aspect within a genre that's typically not known for beautiful shots.
Yeah, I agree with
Um,
that. Like before I got taken out by the story, like there was, again, that pilgrimage. I really enjoyed that pilgrimage, and like, yeah, the music isn't working for me, but it was nice to see that bit of artistry. I agree.
well, that's that director. I'm surprised. I honestly I would love to get your take sometime in the future. If you haven't seen it, have you seen I Heart Huckabees?
Oh, I saw that ages ago. Been like it's something I've seen, but I
Yeah,
probably saw it about the time it came out, type thing.
yeah. I I really enjoyed that movie too, and like the director and writer of this film also co-wrote I Heart Huckabees. So I'm
I remember liking I Heart Huckabees, but I can't remember anything about it, if that makes sense.
well, the difference here is Vena provided again a 20-page
Yeah.
outline versus like an actual writing thing script. As as far as the directing went, I think probably as good as you would have expected, given the lack of material for the cast. As far as the writing side of it went, there definitely could have been more structure or adaptation. I'll definitely give you that, and I think you would appreciate that as well. I think they probably gave too much reign to the actors and actresses and relied too heavily on them. Because
Yeah.
it'd be different if Bree and Plaza and Mikuchi had all worked on a couple projects before,
Yeah.
already had that rapport. Did Riley and Franco work on anything together?
I don't remember seeing anything offhand.
Because I know Franco and Bree are married.
Yes. And then they kind of, yeah, I kind of enjoyed them together. Being married will do that.
I did.
Because they had that little bit of chemistry again.
I would
Oh,
give you, yeah, I would give you that Plaza's character did come off like it felt a lot like her character from Parks and Rec,
yeah.
just rehashed into olden times. You just threw her in there. Don't really think that there's much more. I think there's that much more that the actors and actresses could have done with the lack of like a fully fledged script. I'd have to see a making of, but chances are it would be the director going, "Hey, you do this, this, and this. Go forth. You have to
I
mention
mean,
this in this scene." Like that being the level of writing or directing for the characters. So
yeah.
them having to just make something up on the fly.
And I mean, that can work found footage horror films. That is essentially what they did. That's the whole thing with Blair Witch. They gave them, here's the things you need to mention. Same with Paranormal Activity. So you can do that. I feel like if they were like, I mean, without seeing the outline, I can't say this, but
Yeah.
if they were given the outline, they went, they decided to riff off of each other, and they go, oh crap, we've got another 15 pages to go.
Mm.
Right. So again, it goes back to that pacing aspect of it. It's
That's why the pacing is scene by scene and not over the course of the film.
yeah,
And that's probably something that also pulled you out. I know I would definitely rate this highly and recommend it to people. In fact, I put it on the list.
yeah.
But now I feel a little bad for it. But I like the fact that we like wholly disagree on this film because
We haven't had that yet.
no, and I imagine that that will come.
Yeah,
What's difficult for me and comedy kind of goes back to what I was mentioning about like the scenes and the shots when we're talking about directing.
yeah,
Because they are very like set oriented and it's all about what the people are saying or the absurd actions that they're doing or the injury that they're experiencing. Um, you won't see a thing where like in the background there's glowing red on one side of the screen and growing blue on the other side of the scene. You don't see that a lot except in situations where that director has done more than just comedy,
yeah,
when they start getting into your dramas and your thrillers, and so it really just ends up being like two characters standing there talking to each other. And one of the things that I really enjoy about when I watch a lot of these movies is kind of picking that apart and being
yeah,
like, oh, I see that red glow on the right side of the screen, and I from that you can kind of get tell what the character is supposed to going on, like consciously picking up the accents that the subconscious is picking up on. That's like a little
yeah,
Where's Waldo for me
yeah,
that I really like doing. And I was worried about this one going into it because I don't have a strong structure of analyzing comedy itself.
yeah,
I just laugh at things. I just
yeah,
find things funny. And I knew that going into this you wouldn't have those little shots, those little artistic accents.
yeah.
Um, So I was a little worried that I wouldn't be able to pick out on those things. I know there is one character that I know you absolutely love,
Hmm.
and that is a turtle with a candle on its back.
Oh yes. that that was something I did find funny. That was again one of those things that felt and it felt very Monty Python almost.
So
Like
you,
you just see something absurd like that happening there. like the movie did have its funny moments. Like, it's not that it was unfunny. It's just that a lot of the jokes were antagonistic at best. And I mean, I know like I see exactly why you're trying to compare it to like Always Sunny.
yes,
But the difference with Always Sunny is it turns around and the main cast are the butt of the jokes in the long run. They're doing something completely dumb, and it comes around and bites them.
well,
That doesn't
by
happen. Like nothing like that happens in this. So it just comes across as these are just terrible people and no comeuppance. And again, Franco's character, let's face it, he gets put through the ringer in my mind, and even that doesn't have any consequences for any of the characters. Because I gotta lie, almost every interaction with the girls and him felt a little sexual assaulty,
uh,
to say the least.
sort of, but I believe the only hesitation from him is just him trying to maintain a cover. From my perspective, he is only a representation of lust. Like him being an is just a sexual object in this. The fact that it took like 3 seconds for him to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally good for this."
And he isn't the only character because the same thing happens with Mikuchi's character.
Yeah,
You know, I was mouth agape the entire time.
yeah, yeah. I definitely see what you're saying. Like overall, so that kind of leads into the climax of the film itself, which
Yeah,
I thought was entertaining in the fact that it was all the lies and the sins of these characters put out on display
yeah,
in front of like the representation of the higher power, in this case the bishop and outsider.
yeah,
So everyone coming being exposed in that manner. The fact that
yeah,
like Franco isn't a deaf mute, Plaza is a witch, Makuchi is apparently Jewish and a lesbian, the John C. Riley is a drunk and sleeping with the sister. And then on top of that, just like the absurdity of the bishop opening his door to just seeing like a donkey standing there,
yeah,
which calls back to the original recurring donkey joke that I really enjoyed.
yeah. I really enjoyed that climactic part. Yeah, I found it absurd.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like the
you know,
last
it was
third
just like
that.
all of the yeah, like all of these just clashes happening. I really enjoyed that, with the exception of John C. Reilly and Molly Shannon together. And it's again simply just going back to kind of my theme for this. There was no setup to that. There was
Mm,
no indication that that was there. And it's not like they didn't have scenes together where they could have done a glance or something, right? I mean, you see all the nuns doing that when they were doing their prayers.
mm.
So that part in and of itself felt out of place to me.
Yeah, there definitely
Um,
wasn't a setup for that part. Like there was no wayward glances or anything.
yeah,
But I'm fine with that per se as a gimme to the film, because from the structure of the rest of the film, like we're not going to give them a hard pass on anything else.
yeah,
So giving them that one story beat is a fine
yeah,
gimme, in my opinion.
yeah,
Plus, you kind of needed. It would have been better if they set it up, but they needed something sinful for Molly Shannon
yeah,
for everyone to be
yeah,
included, I guess you could say. And that was probably a bit of a letdown because like she had more of that pure character which hadn't been tainted by the
yeah.
rest of them, including like the drunken father.
And just going with climax, another thing that I loved, as much as I think with Mikuchi, like when they're doing the ritual in the woods.
Hmm.
I absolutely just loved her because I mean, high out of her mind and just tripping out, jumping around. Then everyone starts staring at her when they realize she's there. I thought that was hilarious.
See,
That
and
felt with her character very well. I really enjoyed that
well, that's where you can tell
list
where
of all the
they didn't start getting that, they didn't start meshing and getting that rapport
yeah,
until the later
yeah,
part of that movie. But just that thought of saying like Mikuchi out of her mind and like Plaza over Franco with the blade going like who invited her? Not me. Like having
yeah,
that Mean Girls moment
yeah,
while like about to stab James Franco. Just
yeah.
see that's the absurdity that I really enjoyed about the film. And
And
whole formed, I think I could make you like this film by cutting out like 35 minutes of it.
yep,
Um,
I completely agree with that. Like,
not that I would
yeah,
try to force you to make this film. I think from your perspective, if I were to just guess, is if this was in a 22-minute format, you would have enjoyed it significantly more.
yep, would completely agree.
That kind of culminates that climax and the anti-climax where they're having like their random sins
Yeah,
read out, and honestly like
laying with a woman, homosexuality. Yes, I know technically they're the same thing, but we have to keep them separate.
well, Fred Armisen, Bishop Bartholomew, the perfect person for that job.
Yeah,
Absurdus appears to be very stand-up,
yeah,
but is quite obviously like something very quirky about him.
yeah,
So having him deliver these lines with that straight face and that stone faced gaze,
yeah.
and just reading out the like most random thing, and none of them. A lot of that might have been improvised,
See
maybe
that?
a little bit of pre-planning, but that's a good case of it hitting.
Yeah,
Granted, there's not really any back and forth that was needed in that scene,
yeah.
because he was the primary talk, so he could just say whatever. He also
When,
has
when,
a long storied history of those type of improvisation.
yeah,
That climax and anticlimax of the story fully being the most entertaining section.
yeah.
For me, I had the little laughs, the chuckles, maybe a couple outbursts going to that, but that prepared me for the coven scene
Yeah.
in a way that, at least for me, I don't think it would have hit as hard if it was a faster or harder beat, comedy beat. I feel if there was more humor points during that entire scene would have had to been even more over the top.
Okay.
But I would say the culmination of those three scenes back to back were just blissful for my
Yeah.
humor. Like, oh, neighbors
And
probably heard me laughing.
that those parts, I did love the ending. And I mean, just talking about the casting is like when I'm looking at the characters and how they became, it's like I think they cast them properly. Like
Yes.
Aubrey Plaza, yeah, no, she is that character. Gucci is that. All of the people were cast very well. I think a lot of it, again, it's either that pacing or it's just it
Missing the mark.
took them. Yeah, they missed the mark, and I'm not sure who didn't recognize they missed the mark, at least from what I see. Yeah, that's really what it is. I like these characters. I mean, these are some of my favorite comedy actors. I really enjoy watching them, but be it a mix of the pacing and the chemistry wasn't quite there until too late. I mean, reasons like that, I give this movie 9 out of 13 bad habits.
9 out of 13, honestly?
But my emphasis is on the bad.
Or is this a negative score?
This is a negative score.
Oh,
I did not enjoy this movie. You you did through this discussion, you did make my score a little bit better
so
because
it was.
originally I had it at a 13, 11 out of 13 bad
Ooh.
habits. So,
Oh no. And I can't give them any good habits because no character in the entire film had a good habit. Darn. I would then have to have my own scale.
mhm.
That being said, through this discussion, I no longer like the movie as much as I did before, from the very valid points that you brought up.
All right.
So instead of what would likely have been a 4 out of 5 turtles with candles on their backs, probably down to a 3 out of 5 turtles with candles on their back.
All right.
I just. So would you say that then you agree with the Catholic League's review about this movie of trash, pure trash?
I would like to note that I actually wrote that down to say I completely agree with that. Again, you've made it a little bit better, so it's not. So maybe I'd get rid of the pure trash, but I would say trash.
Mm. Yeah, I think this just culminates to, and I would agree that it just missed its mark and likely just needed more script.
Yep.
Um,
A little bit more script probably would have fixed a lot of it.
probably 30% more script, and
Something
I
to keep them on track a little bit more.
I think they definitely could have made it more about Bree's character, because I really think that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
And you know it's bad in a film, and you wouldn't have me saying this until after this discussion. But you know it's bad in a film where a complete secondary plot vehicle, like plot device, that was Macedo, Dave Franco's character,
Yeah.
is the one with the most realized plot,
Yeah.
storyline in the entire movie. That's probably a very bad thing.
Yeah.
So I guess overall this means we probably should have kept this off the list and kept Velocipaster on the list. Anyways, well, with that, then, I guess there's not too much else that we can say about this movie. This has been BATB Media Club. Join us next time with the second wall for the third part of Carol and Tuesday series. That'll be episodes 7 through 9. And following that next media club for the Tale of Princess Kaguya, something that I know that both me and Devin are very excited to be watching.
And neither of us have seen.
Check us out here or any of our other platforms listed at beardyandthebeast.com. And if you find us compelling, try to convert your friends.
Thanks for joining.